What's up everyone, James here again. Today we're going to talk about practicing, something that I think a lot of us tell ourselves we do, but we don't really do. Now if you're watching this, I'm going to assume that you want to work in the music industry, or you're a musician who's hoping to get ahead in the music business, and you've been told your entire life that practice makes perfect, or practice makes better. But more often than not, we don't really practice. It's kind of like being busy versus being productive. A lot of us are playing, not practicing, or a lot of us are just doing the same thing and calling it practice. And today, we're going to correct that. We're going to put ourselves on the right path. Now, if you were to look up practice in a dictionary, you'll find some explanation like this. To practice is to do something again and again in hopes of learning or improvement. And while that is a perfectly good and perfectly generic description, it doesn't really help you when it comes to the music business. You see, if you approach your career in music the same way that that definition reads for practice, you're not going to get very far, because to practice in this business, and really in every aspect of life, means to be fiercely devoted to becoming increasingly proficient at something, to have a goal, to have a place where you're trying to go with your work. You don't just pick up a guitar and strum chords for an hour every day. You pick up the guitar and work on your songwriting, or work on becoming more technically proficient at that guitar. You work towards something. You don't wake up every day and throw words down just to enjoy your own wordplay. You wake up every day and you write because if you don't get this thing off your chest, you're afraid it will suffocate you. Practice with the goal of becoming a professional is all about purpose. You have to have a purpose behind your practice, and that's what I want to drive home with you today. For starters, practice familiarizes you with your art. We are creatures of habit, and when we complete something, we like to move on to the next thing that we want to complete. But if we really want to practice, we need to learn to take a step back and look at the things that we've done in the past. Was the last song you wrote better than the ones that came before it, or even on par with it? Can that song be improved? Is there something that you did in that song that you've never done before that either made it better or worse? And if so, why? There are so many things to learn from the work that we've already done that in order to move forward and become better at the craft that we're trying to pursue, we can only do so by looking back at the past. We have to know where we've come from in order to know where we're going, and taking the time to truly practice by digging into the things that we've already accomplished, looking at video of the last show, listening to our last record, listening to our last demo, reading the thing that we wrote yesterday to figure out whether or not it was the best thing we could create. That's how we practice. That's how we move forward. Second, practicing allows us to imagine the future without committing to it. Now, I'm a firm believer that the next thing you could create may change the world, but you'll never get there unless you practice and refine your current skill set, which brings us all the way back to the original idea of purposeful practice, doing something with the intent of making something new, with the intent of reaching some new goal. Now, the beauty of practice is that it allows us to explore all the possibilities before we commit to anything. So maybe you're a musician working on your next album, you've listened to everything you've made in the past, and you think on this record, you want to try something a little different, but you don't know what that thing is just yet. You just want to evolve a little bit. Well, by practicing with the intention of figuring out what that thing is, we can explore all the possibilities. We can see what our music would sound like if we added an electric guitar here, or if we did an acoustic track here, or maybe we did a jazz fusion album. We can try all of those things in the privacy of our own practice space and figure out what works best for us before we bring it to the world. It gives us a glimpse at where we could go in the future, what we could become, what we could create, without having to commit to it until we are absolutely sure that it is not only right for us, but that it's the best that it could possibly be. And maybe these 2 points seem a little bit basic, but I think they're worth mentioning here. Practice also makes us stronger, and it reminds us that there's still room to grow. Because while we're working towards that thing, whatever it is that we hope to have, maybe it's a #1 album, while we're working towards that, it's going to be very frustrating. It's going to take us a lot of trial and error. It's going to require a great deal of patience on our part, and it's going to make us push ourselves harder than we've possibly ever pushed ourselves before. And with each step that we take, with each improvement, with each new lyric that we write that we love, with each new hook that captures our attention, we're going to realize just how much further we have to go, how much is left unexplored in our lives. And maybe there are people that we admire that we've been listening to our entire lives who could never create the next song that you're going to create because they aren't on the path that you're on. And you don't know where that path is going to lead unless you commit to continuing to practice your skill set in a very focused and precise way, knowing what you're going towards, allowing yourself to see whatever is out there, and keep going. You just continue forward. And that brings me to 2 final points about practice that I always try to drive home. The first is that practice keeps us humble. Because you know who never practiced? Me either. I don't know a single person that has ever achieved something of great value that just woke up one day and spat that thing out. The moments of genius that we're all chasing, those little fireballs that hit our brain with just the perfect thing that we need to complete the project or get the ball rolling on the next thing, those don't just happen out of thin air. They're not just some miracle that blesses us and nobody else. They're the result of refining our skill sets, of working hard towards becoming a certain thing that we want to become or making a certain thing that we want to create. And as we're doing that, as we're getting our mind and body to think about these things in a very focused way, that's when those lightning bolts hit. That's how it happens. The people who are creating the things that you've always loved and the people who will continue to create things that you love in the future, they're working right now on those skill sets. And when those moments of genius happen, they will not be the result of some cosmic craziness. It'll be the result of their hard work all culminating in this moment where things just fall into place. It may seem like it happens overnight, but you and I both know that that is not the case. It is always the result of years and years of hard work, of grinding away at something for a long time, and that's how those sparks fly. And when you know that, when you recognize that, and can harness that power yourself through your own practice, then you'll understand how humbling it is to realize what it takes to get to that point. The last thing that I want to point out about practice is that it can remind us that humility is worth so much more than ego. Because there are people in this industry who do get ahead because of their ego. They tell everyone that they're the next big thing, and sure enough, some people start to believe them. But the artists that have lasting careers, and more importantly, the artists who are happy, like truly happy music professionals, they're the people who found a way to just be themselves while continuing to do the thing they love. And that goes for managers and publicists and record label heads as well. It's the people who just found a way to express what makes them them that gives them the most joy in life. And that's what I want for you, and that's what you can gain from practice. Because when you get into the practice mindset or into the practice space and you have a notebook in front of you or you're sitting with your guitar somewhere, that's when you can just be yourself, where you can explore all the little ideas that are floating around in your head and figure out what it is that you truly want to say in this life, how you want to present yourself, how you want people to receive you, and all the ideas that you have. That's where the real work is done, and that's where the most joy and lasting happiness is found. And that's honestly the key to it all. Because yes, while you're working on that great album or that great single or the next great press release, there are going to be other people in your field who release things and become major stars and get all the acclaim and 100,000 Twitter followers, and you're going to feel like you're falling behind. But the more you practice and the more you refine your skill set and the more you figure out who you are and find a happiness in just making stuff because it's what you want to create, you're creating just for the sake of creating stuff, you're going to stop worrying about all that nonsense. You're going to realize that it's all just huff and puff and smoke and mirrors and all the things that you've been told your entire life but have never really been able to grasp because you weren't really comfortable with who you are. You were looking for some kind of external acceptance. But as we practice and we work on ourselves and we work on who we are as artists and maybe don't stumble over our words so much, we find ourselves coming to a place where we're just happy being able to make things. And that's what I want for you. So my challenge for you is this. As you move forward in your career, as you begin to look for new jobs or look for new paths and try to figure out how to be the most creative person you possibly can be, focus on practicing. Focus on figuring out who it is you're trying to be, who it is that you really are. Look at the music that you've put out in the past and see what you've learned from it and what you love about it. Just because you had a hit song doesn't mean that the next song you write has to sound like that track. I know a lot of artists whose biggest song is not their favorite song that they've ever made, and they try really hard not to recreate that hit song just because they know it'll sell, because that doesn't ultimately bring them joy or satisfaction with what they're doing. And that's what life's about. It's about that satisfaction you feel deep down within it, and no amount of record sales are gonna fill that void for you. So practicing helps us figure out what really matters and allows us to hone our abilities to get that thing and to have that thing in our lives. And if you want more advice on how to do that and how to manage this thing called the music business, click the subscribe button, because that's what we do here at Music Biz. And right now we're in a big string of videos, so I'll be back real soon. But if you've already subscribed, thank you so much for watching. And I want to offer all of you the same piece of advice. No matter what you do in this life, please take care of yourself, because you deserve it.